All right, hello, ladies and gents. We are back with another SoulCast, and fortunately for you, I think this is the first character-specific episode that we will have more than one guest on. So I'm really excited for that. So without further ado, allow me to introduce both of my guests, Zane from the West Coast, and then an international guest, Andy. And Andy, you're going to have to help me out. Is it Andy Rooks DX? Is that how you pronounce that, or how do you usually?
It's Andy Roo.
Andy Roos. Okay.
Andy Roo.
Andy Roo X, and then just a
DS at the end.
Oh yeah. Oh, weird.
Yeah.
Andy Roo. Yes. Okay. All right. So we got that figured out then. So this is your first time on the podcast for both of you guys. What I usually do is just kind of a little bit of a background for those who may not have heard your name or don't know who you are, or whatever the case may be. So since I've already been chatting with you for a second, Andy, let's start with you. Kind of give us a background, like when did you start playing Caliber, what scenes are you involved with, and so on and so forth.
Well, I started playing Soul Calibur 4, and I didn't take it too seriously. I started with Mitsurugi, and moved on to Siegfried for a bit. It was kind of a friendly competition with my mates, nothing too serious. But then heard about Soul Calibur 5, and then I got it, and I really liked how the game played. And then, for starters, the online was like amazing compared to Soul Calibur 4. And from there, I was an online. I'm still an online player now, at the moment, and picked up quite a few characters, and then I moved on to ZWEI, who I really didn't see much of, that's for sure. And ever since then, I've been using him and getting to grips with my fundamentals. And I'm currently working on trying to get to some tournaments actually over at the UK. So at some point in the future, you should see me on the streams and stuff in London.
Nice. All right then. Great. Well, so now on to our second guest, Zane. Now I know a lot of West Coast players, have run into you, but give us a little bit of a background on you. Like, when did you start playing Caliber? Have you always, was it ZWEI right off the bat for 5, or how did that work?
All right, so to start off, I was originally known as Ridley Omega. That was my actual original account, but I was forced to leave it because it was hacked. So instead, I just made this new one. But I started back in the days of Soul Calibur 3, but at that time, I just picked up that game as a way to escape those 10 minutes of school, before school, after school. It was nothing competitive. And then I discovered about Soul Calibur 4, and I started actually playing it with more enthusiasm. And then, but I wasn't that much of a competitive player yet. It was just, button mashing and all the basic stuff. And then I was introduced to online mode, and I got to say, it was quite frustrating with the lag. But, you actually learn to deal with it eventually. And then I ran into players like Zeph, Crazy CD, and all those good players that actually teach you stuff, and that's where I started picking up the competitive play. So yeah, I actually improved quite a lot, and my first tournament was in Pasadena, California. It had a lot of good players. I think it was Zeph, Crazy CD, Signia, NDK, and a lot of others. And that was my first tournament. And then coming back to Soul Calibur 5, my character of interest, and probably the only one that I actually played, was ZWEI. First and only one. And I'm actually trying to pick up some other character, but I just don't like any of them. So the other tournament I actually attended was SCR, SoulCal Regionals. And unfortunately, and luckily for me, I got 5th place. But it was a really good tournament, Pretty good place to chill and meet people.
Yeah, I think that's where I first caught a glimpse of you, was at SCR. Because I believe, if I remember correctly, that's the you had a ZWEI match with someone, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
it was a mirror match against a guy named Snort Me and Dope.
Yeah, and I heard that was pretty hype, that we had side bettings and stuff.
Yeah, it was pretty hard.
Well, since we've been throwing around the name ZWEI a bunch, I suppose we can kind of, talk about that character. One of the more unique additions to this game, I guess we can kind of start with the very thing that makes him so unique, and that is, of course, is the wolf, or I don't even know what you want to call it, but
Definitely.
there's a lot of goofy stuff going on when that wolf comes out, and since you guys are the experts, I'll let you explain. But from just an observer perspective, it almost feels like you kind of have to play him like a 2D character. Like you have these hold buttons that you have to use. Sometimes you can hold moves longer than others. So how does that dynamic work? Like how do you go about like trying to figure out when and where to hold on to those moves or when to use them?
Well, see, to start with, ZWEI, just like any other character, has holes through his gimmicks. And even Viola, that orb, you can kind of GI it, or you can find stuff that can go through it. So ZWEI, for example, you have different attacks with Ein. You have vertical and horizontal, so you can either stab or duck, which is pretty bad against ZWEI. But the thing that people don't realize is that most of the ZWEI players I've ran into, they just use Ein consistently without actual strategy. So they're just gonna toss it in your face and keep trying to make you fall for it. And eventually you're gonna adapt, and ZWEI won't be a problem. And he's gonna be pretty bad. Then we have the smart players who actually think about when they're gonna toss in ZWEI before they actually do. So I believe that the best way to use Ein is either to guard yourself. So, for instance, let's say you whiff an attack, an Ein attack. So, for example, 4A, and you hold it, and then if you whiff, instead of attacking immediately after that, you can just guard, and Ein will be on hold. So, the moment the opponent attacks you, Ein will attack them back as you're guarding. So Ein will eventually become your shield rather than your sword. And, that's one of the effective ways of using it. Andy, you got anything else to add?
All right, everyone. I'm actually going to take a little bit of a timeout here and kind of a little interjection in the middle of the podcast. So we had some technical difficulties related to the minutes that I have. Since Andy was in the UK, he actually didn't have access to a mic. So he could only use his phone. So once the minutes ran out for me, we couldn't really get it back. And for reasons that I won't go into, I can't actually reload those minutes right now. But with that being said, in a very unfortunate turn of events, there was actually a lot that we talked about that he contributed to in this conversation that did not get recorded. And not just because it cut out, but for whatever reason, because of a connection issue, his voice didn't get recorded. So we actually talked quite a bit with him, and of course Zane as well, who's still here with me. So I have to, of course, issue a huge apology to him. Obviously, he knows of the situation, what's going on, but he contributed a lot to this conversation, and Zane and I are going to finish it out, and hopefully we can give him, as much credit for what he discussed and contributed as we possibly can. And then, if I can make it up to him at a later date, I will certainly do so. Since he had talked about going out to some tournaments, maybe we can do a separate interview episode or something along those lines. But so my apologies to him, and of course apologies to the listeners. Technical difficulties are what they are. You just kind of have to roll with them as they come. But we're going to try to wrap up the discussion here, and then anything that we can remember that Andy had mentioned or talked about, we'll of course let you know that he was the one that contributed that, and we'll just try to do the best that we can. So with that, I still have Zane here.
Hey,
now,
guys.
you were when we got disconnected, or where the recording left off, you had just gotten done talking about using Ein kind of as an extension of your defensive skills, I guess, rather than just mindlessly throwing him out, actually having a plan for him and things of that nature. Now, you had mentioned or broken up, ZWEI into a few different categories of styles of play, so to speak, that you can use him with, and I don't think we had gotten to the poking aspect yet of that. So I guess let's start with since Ein and you were talking about Ein, zoning and then the poking kind of go hand in hand, so to speak. So at first, let's start with using Ein and how you would set him up, and kind of use him to flow into these other styles of play.
Right, definitely. Okay, so to start off, I want to say that Ein can actually be used in different ways, just like ZWEI himself. The most effective, I would say that it's just for setups. Setups is definitely one of the most effective things you can do with Ein. But the other very important thing is that you can actually use them as a shield. So in case you whiff, like say for example 4A hold, your first attack will whiff. If you think that the opponent will attack you back, you can just block it and Ein will come and attack him back for you. So he will be your shield as you're guarding and your life points will be safe. Another interesting thing is that the holes. Oh, that's actually the setup. So you can hold Ein for pretty nasty setups, and we'll get to some of the B plus K brevet later. But part of his zoning game relies on Ein as well. So that's something very interesting.
Okay, so kind of give us some examples. So I know that we had talked
Yes.
pretty extensively about say 1B. I know that was one that was mentioned quite a few times by both you and Andy. But what other moves would you use?
Right, okay, so basically the most useful moves with Ein would be 4A hold. This one is a horizontal hitting attack. Let me see. I'm sorry, this is a vertical hitting attack. 1B hold. This is actually the most famous one ZWEI has. It's pretty popular. And this is what is used for zoning and for catching sidestep. The other useful Ein move is 6/6A plus B, which actually does a lot of things at once. It's a guard break move. It has a lot of range, and it puts you on plus, and you can do setups as well. The other one, which is really, really interesting and can actually lead to very nasty setups, is B plus K Bravich. That Ein does a lot of damage if the opponent gets caught by it. And of course, we have the poke B hold, which does a lot of damage on counter hit, and it can lead to a tech trap.
Now, I want you real quick to explain the B hold, because I remember that when we were talking about it, before we got disconnected and everything, that Andy was going through the pokes a little bit, and you actually mentioned something about B hold that you didn't consider it a poke per se. So kind of explain that a little bit. Like what about B plus K? Is it that's not just a poke, or that you consider it more than a poke?
Right. So Behold, the reason why I don't consider it a poke is because characters with auto GI, they can repel it pretty easily. So if they block the first B, the second hit of Behold, it will be auto GI'd, and you will get punished for it. So it's better just to BB or single B for poking than do a Behold. Behold is I would actually use that just for counter hit and damage. But for the most part, characters that don't have auto GI, they can simply sidestep and punish you. That's why it's not really. I mean, I wouldn't consider it a poke. I would just consider it some sort of mix-up.
Now, I did want to ask, because it had been brought up that you mentioned the GI, how you can GI his the second part, the actual Ein part to it, Now we had talked about how there are moves where it's not really necessarily beneficial to do that, or you don't really have to worry about it as a ZWEI player, like you actually just mentioned the 6/6 A plus B. Now, it's possible, right, to GI or just guard or whatever it may be, the second part of that. But I remember that you guys were talking about. It's a really good move for a variety of reasons that we'll get into. But as far as Ein is concerned, even though you can hold that move, the Ein will still come out. And even though it's predictable, it doesn't really leave ZWEI at a disadvantage. Kind of explain that to us, like why it's not the predictability of it, I guess you could say, isn't really detrimental.
Right. See, the thing is, like I was mentioning before, and I think Andy will talk about this too, is it all depends on the consistency of the usage of Ein. So if you just keep tossing it every time, the opponent will get used to it. So if you keep spamming B hold, the opponent will know that Ein is coming and will step him. And so one of the things about B hold is that you can't cancel Ein, you can't call him back. Whereas if you do 6/6 A plus B hold, you can taunt and Ein will be cancelled and you can bait a GI whiff from the opponent. This applies to most of the moves on hold, but it's really hard to cancel unless you enter max hold. Other than that, yeah, it's Ein will come out automatically. And if the opponent got used to it, he will either step Ein or duck him, in which case he will get punished. I think Andy Roo mentioned something. Let me think here. Oh, right. He mentioned that for the B poke, he mentioned that the second for the BB poke, the second B will whiff for the most part, and he's right. You actually have to be up in his face, in the opponent's face, so you can land a BB. Otherwise, the second B will whiff. So you really have to watch out for that.
Gotcha. Now, there's actually from here, there's actually two things that I want to talk about that we talked about pretty extensively when Andy was talking. And the first part are the guard break moves.
Yes.
Now, it seemed, when we were talking, there were only a couple moves that you really needed to worry about, but because they were so good, that's all he really needs. Like, everything is set up around those two moves. Now, we already mentioned 6/6 A plus B, and that will be a theme, I'm sure, throughout this podcast. But he also talked about the 2-1-4 series. He has the A and the B version. And the B, of course, is a pretty big guard breaking move. But let's just talk about the guard break game in general, and walk us through that. Like, how do you set up those sorts of situations? And do you find yourself using that more than poking, or the same, as poking and zoning? Or just kind of walk us through your mindset as you go through that.
Right. So as Andy explained before, he mentioned a lot about 6/6 A plus B being actually a really good guard break move, and he got into detail with Night Fiend B, which is a 2-1-4B, and then the other version, which is 2-1-4A. Now, as he said before, 2-1-4A is used to catch stepping. It doesn't really cause much guard break damage as 2-1-4B, but if you can catch somebody with that step, it will actually deal a little bit of damage. The problem with 2-1-4A is that it's unsafe, so you can easily get punished for doing that. And then, but the actual threat here is 2-1-4B. It's +4 on guard, and I believe it's +10 on hit. So you actually get a lot of time to do your mix-ups or setups after 2-1-4B. And if successfully blocked, then you will be eating their guard damage away. The way you would apply the guard damage game, you have to get the opponent in a you have to get the opponent to freeze. So the way you would do that, you would have to include the poking game. So for example, let's take 2A. For example, it's I believe it's +8 or +9 on hit. So just by spamming that, the opponent will freeze and will wait for your next move. So after a successful 2A on hit, you can do 2-1-4B. The opponent will know you're at +4 on guard. So he will freeze. You can do another 2-1-4B. Or if you predict he will attack you, you can interrupt him with another 2A or a BB. He will freeze again, toss in a 2-1-4B again, and so on and so forth. The point of ZWEI's game is to freeze the opponent so you can keep your offense going. And so that's why it's the guard pressure game, really effective.
Now, it was. I did want to ask just real quick because ZWEI, of course, is not the fastest character in the game. Now, in that situation that you just mentioned, where 2A on hit, for instance, you're at a good disadvantage, and you go for the 2-1-4. Now, regardless of whether you do the A or B, you figure that for characters with a fast 2A, that they can probably interrupt you out of that, right?
Right.
So if they try to do a poking option because they know that you're going to go for that, it's obviously a scary move. You don't want to sit there and keep eating 2-1-4B. What sort of options or what would you do if you think that they're going to start mashing buttons and do a 2A or something?
That is a very good question, and this is where his excellent AGI comes in handy, which is 6A+B. If you keep spamming one of the guard break moves and the opponent predicts that you're gonna toss it again, and he decides to counterattack you with something like 2A or another mid-hitting move, you can AGI his response by doing 6A+B, and or you can sidestep his attack and counter it. You can also simply just guard or a GI. But like I mentioned before, I don't know if this is still in the recording, but ZWEI is it's a character that relies heavily on the player. You really have to be good at readings and making predictions. Otherwise, this character is just based on gimmicks and matchup ignorance.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's we talked about the guard break game a little bit. Now I think if I remember correctly, we went over the pokes. The standing K, 3K,
Right.
2K, and even some of the more I don't want to say obscure, but probably moves that a lot of other characters don't use, such as like a 9B.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Now you have this poking game, and you also have this guard break game. Now some of the difficulties that we had talked about, is that he has some problems with the faster characters or characters. He can't punish very well. There's a few problem areas that he has now in the sense of. Like, for example, punishing, taking advantage of those situations where you have plus frames. Kind of walk us through, I guess, the defensive mindset of ZWEI, because most of what we've been talking about so far is on the offense. You've managed to get them to stop moving, and now it's your turn to attack. But on the flip side of that coin, you're kind of backed up against the wall, or they're on the offensive. Aside from his little pokes, what would you advise like doing? Are you big on the just guarding, or is it mostly just guarding until you can sneak in a 2A, or how do you do that?
Definitely. Okay, so one of the styles that we mentioned that ZWEI can be played as is zoning. So in the scenario that you are being frozen by the opponent's rush down, what would be recommended is to have a really good read. And if you are able to, if you can catch that moment of a mid attack, you can stop the opponent by doing your AGI, which is 6A+B. So, but in the event that the opponent, I think Andy Rue talked about punishing. He went into some examples, and so I'll cover that right now. In the event that the opponent does an unsafe attack, you have so he's pretty bad at punishing. I mean, he can still do it, but it's not as efficient as other characters. So for the most part, instead of punishing something, you would rather go for a setup or for a guard break move. But you have several punishing moves. Andy Rue mentioned full crouch full crouch A, which is I-12, and for characters that keep rushing you down when you're near the wall, or they just keep pressuring you, 2A is the generic interrupt tool for almost all characters. Well, all characters that have a good 2A. So you can use that as well. It's I-12 when you're full crouch, so it's a really good punisher. The other one is K, just standing K, which is an I-13 move. This is lacking range, but if you are able to get in one, why not? You might as well. Then you go to AA, which is one of the, like Andy mentioned, is one of the slower punishing AAs, which is I-14. The frame data said I-13 before, but we tested that and it's actually I-14, so we kind of fixed that. Then we have 6B, which is actually really, really good poke. Despite the fact that it's a high hitting attack, 6B is really good. Gives a lot of advantage on hit, and it gives you an 11 frame stun on counter hit. So you can do a lot of things after that. We have I-15, we have BB, which is one of the poking tools, and we have 4KB, which Andy mentioned as well. Now, 4KB is a tricky one. That one is one of those moves that nobody will ever use because it looks stupid and it's unsafe and whatnot. But if used correctly, it's actually a really good punisher. And it's a two-string hit. Two-string move. So it actually catches unexpectedly some opponents. So you might land the B hit or the K hit. So it's actually really good. And then we have the I-16 punishers, which is Wild Rising K. I think that's about it. And then the best punishers start getting at about I-17, which is where we get 4B. 4B is one of the other poking tools. Excuse me. And the good effect of this one is that you can actually Brave Edge 4B. It's still I-17. So 4B, you can Brave Edge it. And from that, you can combo into 668 plus B, like Andy Ruth mentioned. Or you can do a 1B hold setup, which is really cool. You can do some nasty stuff with it. The other side effect of 4B Brave Edge is that you can delay it. So for an I-17 punish, it's actually pretty good. Then we get to I-18 Punisher, 4A hold. This is where the mix-ups start getting a little bit heavier. You can do an unblockable mix-up. And then we get the really, really good stuff from I-19 and above, which you get A plus B, which is a very, very, it's a really interesting punishing tool with ZWEI, and also it has a very deceptive range. You get A plus B and 3B. They're both 19.
All right. So, as you mentioned before, we started talking about the specific punishers. It sounds like a lot of what you would do rather than taking that damage is just to go into like a guard break game and do 214B and just kind of take those frames rather than taking the little poke that you might get.
Yes.
And I know Andy mentioned just kind of as an example of his weakness in this category, his AA, which you mentioned, not quite as fast as a lot of other characters' AAs, which are usually around 11. His is, was it 13 or 14?
14.
14, yeah, so a little on the slow side for that. And then I don't know if we mentioned it, but I think if I remember Andy correctly, he said that 214B, that breaks in 8. Is it 8 or 6?
I believe it's 8.
8, and then it's 668 plus B that breaks in 6, right?
6.5.
6.5. That's right. Okay. So yeah. So as just based on those two moves alone, you can see it doesn't take very long to whittle down that guard.
And that's excluding the other moves. This is just using those two basic guard break moves. But obviously in mid-match, you're not going to just spam those. You're going to use other moves. So, yeah, that's excluding the other really good moves.
Sure. And I know another example, A plus B you just talked about, not only is it a good punishing move, but, it also fits into that that guard break category too.
Yes, definitely breaks in 10.
Yeah, so definitely something to think of. Now we we kind of been flirting with the topic of Brave Edge here over the past few minutes. So I do want to talk about that a little bit because I think that was the topic that Andy talked most about, and that just in general that I think we spent the most time on, because he seems to, he's a character that, as Andy mentioned quite a few times, he becomes a lot more effective once you you have meter that you can spend.
Yes.
And a lot of it seems to be combo oriented. So I guess real quick, just walk us through what his brave edges are, and then which ones you like the most and how you would use those.
Okay, so quoting Andy back when he was when he was explaining the brave edges, he is right. ZWEI is very dependent on the amount of bars you have, and for the most part, that won't be a problem because ZWEI can get a lot of bars by inflicting damage, as you will see in some matches. So that won't be much of a problem. But Andy was right. You do have to save your bars in case you want to juggle them. Let me get into the Brave Edge attacks. I'll go in order. First, starting with 3A Brave Edge. This is a step catcher. The first hit is I'm sorry. Oh yeah, the first hit is a mid, and so is the second hit. They use this attack is useful to catch step, but also to sort of trick the opponent who is used to the regular 3AA. Because for 3AA, the second A is a high hitting attack. So if the opponent is used to ducking the second A, adding the Brave Edge version will catch them by surprise. Like Andy mentioned, the downside of this is that this Brave Edge attack is unsafe on guard. It's minus 16. So if you're up against fast characters, you can actually get punished pretty heavily for this. But other than that, 3A is probably the best sidestep catcher he has. The other one, which is probably everyone's favorite, is 4B Brave Edge, which is the poking tool and the Brave Edge attack at the same time. The advantage you have with this one is that you can delay the Brave Edge. So if the opponent sees the first poke of 4B, they will decide to attack, and then not long after that, you can actually activate Brave Edge. I think you get a 12 frame window where you can activate the Brave Edge. And so the knee will come out, the opponent will eat the stun, and you can combo off of that. So it's actually pretty effective. And you can actually ring out from this. It has a pretty nasty and deceptive range for ring out. So that's another Brave Edge. This is what the next one is what Andy was talking about the most, which is 1K Brave Edge. It's really, really good. He describes several scenarios where you can knock the opponent on the ground and then you can enter your Oki game. And if you can read the opponent that he will stay on the ground and he will just lay there, you can use 1K Brave Edge to pick him back from the ground and juggle him as long as you have bars, and then you can end the juggle with A plus B or a 1B hold setup. Another thing is, after you do, we're gonna combine two Brave Edge attacks here just to explain a really massive whiff ZWEI has. 4B Brave Edge, if you sidestep to your right and do 1K Brave Edge, you have enough time to do that. But if you sidestep to the right, I believe Ein will successfully lift the opponent back up and you can juggle him. But if you sidestep to the left and do 1K Brave Edge, he will whiff. So that's really bad. Other than that, for 1K Brave Edge, if Ein is blocked, you get plus 10 on guard. But if it whiffs, you can get punished.
Well, I know another thing real quick, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit more later too, with the 1K Brave Edge that I know Andy mentioned a few times. A plus B has really good ring out range, and because the 1K Brave Edge can pick him up, it's actually enough time. I think the scenario he mentioned is that you can just kind of keep doing it until you're close enough to the edge where the A plus B will ring out.
Yes, exactly.
So you can just kind of keep carrying them to to the wall.
Yeah, so if you calculate that you're close enough to the ring that you can get the opponent, near the edge, you can keep doing 1K Bravage as long as you have bars, and you can get them all the way to the edge of the ring and just end it with A plus B and for a ring out. So it can potentially become a Doom combo depending on the stage.
Nice. Okay, so we got that that Brave Edge. So I guess I just kind of move down the list then.
Okay, so the next one, I'm just gonna go down a really interesting one. Andy covered 66A Bravage. Now, what this one does, as he mentioned, it's going to fire Ein in a. It's pretty funny because it's an A attack, so it will catch stepping, but the second hit of this Bravage can be sidestep. Ein can be sidestepped. So, but if successfully guarded, Ein will put you at plus 30 at guard, and even if Ein is just guarded, you will still be at plus 15. So it's a really awesome tool. Now, in the event that you hit with 66A Bravage, you can combo it with 1A for an 80 plus damage sidestep killer. Other than that, you can actually use the hold version of 66A Bravage and do setups with it. You can, as Andy mentioned, you can do 214B after it since you're plus 30. Or you can do an unblockable setup. You can do 66A Bravage, hold it, max hold, and then do ZWEI's unblockable, which is 44B plus K. It's a pretty nasty setup. Then the next Bravage mood, which I'm sorry, yes, actually the next one, which Andy skipped a little. I don't know if he actually mentioned it, but it's 33B Bravage. This one in itself is not so effective, but the actual really, really good effect of this one is if you manage to break the guard with it. It can be delayed big time. So if you see that you break the opponent's guard with 33B, you can by reaction you can activate the Brave Edge, and Iron will come out, punch the opponent I think like 3 times, and it will deal massive damage since it's going to be on counter hit. So that's probably the only good use I would suggest. Other than that, if you're near the wall, just use 33B Brave Edge and then a critical edge. So it's
all right. So let's talk about the one that's super tricksy and awesome.
Oh, definitely.
And, the one that Andy said that it was his favorite, and I can definitely see why, and that would be, of course, B plus K, Brave Edge. So walk us through the mind games with that and what's going on.
It's actually everyone's favorite, if I'm not mistaken. We actually, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, it's a pretty nasty move, and once you get the hold of it, it's really to your advantage. So the input is B plus K Brave Edge. Now, what this will do, it will summon Ein, and when this has been done because ZWEI will glow in yellow, the yellow Brave Edge Super Saiyan effect, and then Ein will disappear for I think about 2 seconds. Let me see the input. Yeah, he will come out for until frame 77, so that's a second and a half I think. And so this gives you a time to do a potential mix-up or a lot of setups. The side effect of this one, you can hold it. You can hold it for a while longer. So if you hold it, it will come out until frame 82. So let me give you examples of what you can do with this move. You can set up an unblockable setup with B plus K Brave Edge. So you just do B plus K Brave Edge, do 214B, and after you break their after you hit them, Ein will come out of his summon and he will punch the opponent. So that's the first unblockable setup, and it can actually ring out too. So if you catch him by surprise, he won't see it coming. The other thing is, if the opponent somehow gets used to it, you can throw in a series of other moves. For instance, you can do B plus K Brave Edge. The opponent will react to it, and you can BB him immediately, in which case it will give you enough stun for Ein to hit him again. So it's actually pretty nasty. And then the other thing that Andy mentioned, which is really, really tricky and actually kind of cool, is that the cooldown. I'm sorry, the time, the appearance time of Ein can be delayed furthermore by doing B plus K Bravage, and then immediately, not immediately after that, but just a little short after that, you can do B plus K, just regular B plus K, which will do a mid hitting Ein attack, and then it's really weird because other Ein attack moves will give you an Ein cooldown. So after doing an Ein attack, you can't do Ein again, but this one is the only exception. And it goes both ways. So you can do B plus K Bravage, B plus K, or you can do B plus K and then B plus K Bravage. And from there you can do your combos or simply mind games.
And I know that especially, you mentioned character knowledge, or I guess
Yes.
ignorance, I guess is the word that you used. I think it can also like be really, really big in that, because some people will see that, think that he's going away, or you do another Ein move, like a, I don't know, 1B or Behold or something like that. But there's still the second Ein that's going to come out eventually.
Actually, well, like you mentioned right now, for the character ignorance, like Andy mentioned, you can do for people that don't know this matchup. If you're trying to get away from them, Andy mentioned that you can do B plus K Bravage and then just back off. Just keep walking forward. The opponent will run into you and Ein will punch him in the face, which is pretty cool. The only thing about this is there's a window that if z.w.e.i gets hit, even if it's on block or on hit, if the opponent comes in contact with z.w.e.i, Ein will be cancelled out of that Bravage. And but that's during a short period of time. After that, regardless if Ein gets hit on guard, Ein will still come out.
Gotcha. There was something. I feel there was another thing that was mentioned. I'm trying to remember what it was that you could, because you mentioned a couple unblockable setups, but there was another one where you could hit him, and it guarantees the Ein follow up off of that. But even if they blocked it, oh god, what was it?
I don't remember.
Maybe no, it wasn't 6-6. Maybe it's 6-6B. Maybe. I think that.
I'm sorry. That's if the backstep. You can do the Bravage, B plus K Bravage, and then if you do 6-6B, it will cause a stun for them, and then Ein will come out.
Yeah, and that was that's the one I remember because it did a pretty healthy chunk if you managed to to hit it. Okay, cool. Okay, never mind. Pretty small thing. It was just bugging me that I couldn't remember what that was. Okay, so just another one of those options that you can do after the B plus K Brave Edge. So okay, so we got that Brave Edge taken care of. Now we did talk a little bit about the critical edge. And it sounded like, based on what you had said, that it's mostly for juggles is when you would want to use that.
Yes.
Okay, and then that puts you. You actually made a reference to it earlier. Andy had talked a lot about like certain Oki setups, how after a knockdown, it leaves him in a good position to do a guard break move like a 6-6 A plus B, or probably better yet a 2-1-4 B, since they're right there in his face. And it sounds like the critical edge leaves you at that good position. Now, are there any things, I guess, in addition to that that are worth mentioning about the critical edge?
Yes, definitely. The very special thing about his critical edge, even though you're using Ein, he's supposed to get a cooldown, but his critical edge is I think is the second exception where you don't get an Ein cooldown. So immediately after a critical edge, you can do another Ein move. But the usual combo with his critical edge would be you do a CE first, B plus K will relaunch him in the air, and then you do 4A plus B. That's the basic combo. But you can mix it up by doing a critical edge, And then you can go from, well, this is very character dependent. So for example, if you have ZWEI versus ZWEI, you can do a critical edge, 1K, I'm sorry, B plus K Brave Edge, and then do 1K. The 1K will cause a stun long enough for I to be able to hit them even when they're on the ground. And then from there, you can do a 1A combo. Also, the very interesting is, the very interesting is that when you do a critical edge, you can follow it up with an unblockable, which will cause more damage than the original CE combo, but it can be rolled to either side. But it's really, really hard.
So you would just do the CE and then just do the unblockable? Or
Yes.
How does that work?
Yeah, just the CE and then unblockable. The 4-4B plus K. It actually does more damage than the usual CE combo, but it's really tricky because if you miss, you can be punished heavily.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. Now, we did. It sounds like a lot of your meter use is going to be for stuff like B plus K Brave Edge and maybe some 1K Brave Edges if you're doing some combos. But we did talk a little bit about the GI. So let's kind of go through that a little bit. Like, when would you use a GI? And like, how often do you find yourself doing a GI? It sounded like from what Andy was saying, like it's very character specific. Like there's certain characters that you would probably want to GI more than with others. But I mean, do you agree with that, or is how do you use the GI?
Yeah, I agree to a certain point. It all comes down to how good you can actually read the opponent. As Andy mentioned, GI can be a powerful tool, and he's right. But for the most part, I would use it against a move that I know I can react to with a GI. So, for example, you can't just after a BB attack from you can't just GI expecting the opponent that he will attack you back after a BB. So, taking for example a move like Azeroth's 4B hold, you can react to that with a GI. If you don't want to do a just guard. So then what Andy mentioned as well was that after a GI you have a lot of options which are really really good and effective. You can either attack back with a poke, either 4B, the Brave Edge version, 3B if you're close enough, or if you're expecting a GI response from the opponent, you can do 6-6 A plus B, which because of the slow input, it will go through the re-GI attempt. You can also do the unblockable attack for 4B plus K, in which case, no matter if the opponent re-GIs or not, it will still hit unless they sidestep. And I'm pretty sure all the characters can do this, even ZWEI. After a GI, you can do a critical edge, which will be guaranteed.
Now, just generally speaking, do you find yourself GIing very often, or is it very, very situational then?
It's very situational because, as Andy said, the meter usage, it has to be sparingly.
Mm-hmm. Now, one thing that I actually don't think we got to talk about at the time, we're talking about all this meter usage, and obviously he's a better character when he has meter. But does he have a problem building meter? Like, do you ever find yourself like just really strapped for meter, and you're just having no way to build it whatsoever?
Definitely not. ZWEI is one of those characters that you see your bar empty, and then the next second you will see 2 bars full. Out of nowhere, just like that. He builds a lot of meter out of nowhere. And let me just give you an example from the top of my head. One of his combos, 6-6 A plus B, 4 A plus B, that builds a ton of meter if you successfully land it.
All right, so I guess that's one thing that you don't have to worry about too much. Okay, so another thing that I did want to discuss a little bit that we had talked about previously. I just want to make sure we don't gloss over it too much. We were talking about kind of like his weaknesses, so to speak, and I think at least for this recording we haven't talked too much about that. Now we talked about his punishing. He's not the best punisher. It sounds like he also has a little bit of like some range issues. Like I know Andy specifically mentioned 6-6A. Now with I guess I'll just kind of ask an open-ended question. For are those like the two main weaknesses, or like what other problems does he have, and like what would your method of getting around those be?
The main weakness, in my opinion, would be his punishing game, which is just really, really bad. It can still be done, but it's not as effective. The other weakness, which we are talking about right now, is his range. Now, when I mean range, I mean ZWEI himself without Ein. Once you include Ein in your range game, it can be very tricky because, again, Ein can be stepped or ducked. So, but he has a lot of range. Take in, for example, 1B max hold. The thing can slap you in the face from mid-screen, and it's really, really heavy. So, yeah, definitely his range is one of the problems. So the way you would come around that, or prevent that from being a problem for you, you need to know who you're up against, what character. So take, for example, slow characters like Astaroth. You can definitely poke the heck out of him since he's slow, and he won't be able to interrupt you as much as somebody as Pyrrha. And then you can take somebody like Pyrrha, who we just mentioned, to zone her out. You just backstep, even though your backstep is kind of bad, you can try to zone her using 1B hold. Just not too close because she can actually stab you out of it.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Good old stab. Good for all situations.
Yeah, definitely. But you have to know when to use it. That's the thing about ZWEI. You have to know when to toss in his moves.
Well, you actually just brought up a topic that I wanted to discuss a little bit more with ZWEI, because it's I don't know if we already mentioned it, but it does seem like he's a character that like you already said, it's a lot. How well you do with him is going to depend a lot on your ability to read your opponent, but at the same time, a lot of it is character dependent.
Yes.
So you have to have that knowledge, or that, I guess, should say, that counter knowledge when you're going into a match. So how, I guess, talk a little bit about like how that affects your play style. And we started off the conversation or the podcast by saying that he has these different styles that you can play him, and just kind of talk about how you go in and out of those different styles and how it changes depending on the character that you're playing against.
Definitely. Okay, so let's take in, for example, a character like Astaroth again. Now he has range, but he doesn't have speed, so that automatically tells you that you can go in, poke the hell out of him, and he probably won't be able to interrupt you. But then if we get to zoning, he will have that range. For example, A plus B or 4-4-A, it will catch your backstab. So what you have to do is, again, you have to set the opponent to a frozen state. So in the scenario that he thinks you're going to keep attacking him, keep poking him, and then once you're at advantage, you can backstab, just get away from him, cause a whiff, and of course, if Astro whiffs, you know you have a guaranteed 6-6 A plus B, and that's what you want. You want to make them whiff so you can get in. What I would recommend also, I think most people don't agree, but is mixing up between the styles, because some people tend to only stick to one gameplay style. So it would be either only guard break moves, or poking, or simply only zoning. But what you have to do is mix them up because you want to keep the opponent guessing.
Now, are there any maybe exceptions to that rule for you, where maybe characters that it's probably better to just ignore one part of his game, or do you think that that's that you should mix it up against all the characters?
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to mix it up. So for slower characters, you can simply win by poking them. You don't have to. There's no exception for that. I would actually say the exception would be characters like Ivy. She's really good with range and with far range and close range. She's really good at that. So you have to really be careful when you mix it up. But you can actually go head to head with some characters just with one single style. Well, like Andy mentioned, like both of us mentioned, actually, you can't really do anything about 668 plus B unless you have bars to GI it. Other than that, you just have to sit there and eat it.
Yeah, which is always not fun. One thing I do want to mention real quick, because I don't, I think kind of like a side note, so to speak. When Andy was talking earlier, he did mention a little goofy thing with ZWEI, where there are certain moves where Ein kind of, his hitboxes are kind of funky and he does some weird stuff. And I had asked, I remember I asked him specifically about the 6-6A Brave Edge. And like against the wall, if there was, a situation where they can't do anything, they're going to have to sit there and eat it, and you get the plus 30 or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And in that situation, Ein actually flies off the ring and going out hitting space. Now, what are just kind of some goofy things to keep in mind for people who are trying to pick up the character? Other than that move, are there any other moves that you use on a regular basis that you have to watch out for that sort of stuff?
Yeah, definitely. There's a couple that just came in mind to me. So one of them is the one you just mentioned, 668 Brave Edge. If you do it near the wall or close to the edge of the ring, Ein will fly out and you will be like, hey, where the hell are you going? And he will whiff. So that's one. The other one, it's 3-3B Brave Edge, where Ein will punch the opponent once, and then the other two punches he will go through the wall or out of the ring. So he will miss. And then the third one that I'm aware of, it's the 4A hold whiff when you break their guard. So I'm not really sure which, this is character dependent, but it does happen when you break somebody's guard and then you do 4A, I'm sorry, when you break somebody's guard with 4A hold, Ein will whiff. So it gets really funky, and that's the problem with ZWEI. He whiffs a lot. It doesn't whiff enough to affect the entire match, but it whiffs enough to request a patch.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, or like you just said, it may not affect the entire match, but it's still something that you have to be aware of, because if you're in that clutch moment where it's final round,
Yeah.
you both have one hit left, if you forget about something like that, it could be that's it. You lose.
Yeah, definitely.
You whiffed, so,
and the strange part is that these whiffs are random. They're totally random. There's no chart explaining specifically which, for all of them at least. But yeah, you definitely have to be aware of that. I think Andy mentioned that for the wall combos, he avoids doing 1K Bravage because the Ein flip is inconsistent. And like I told you, we don't have a chart for that, so it's really hard to tell when he's going to whiff or not.
Gotcha. I'm glad that you actually mentioned the wall stuff, because we talked about Ringouts a little bit. The 1K Brave Edge, you can kind of use that as a loop, so to speak, to get him to the edge, and then you can finish it off with the A plus B. Now, first, I just want to ask real quick about the Ringouts. A plus B seems to be like the go-to Ringout move, both in juggles and out in the open. It seems to push pretty far. Does he have any other noteworthy Ringout moves or Ringout, I guess, setups or juggles or anything like that are useful?
Definitely. Let me just mention some of them. You have stuff like B plus K Bravage. Just Ein itself, he will ring you out. You also have a move called Pied Piper, which is 6B. 6B plus K. So from that you can do two versions. You can do 6B plus KB or 6B plus KA, in which case both of them will ring you out. But the most interesting one, which is kind of funky and funny as well, but is really effective, is take a move like, let me see, 1B hold, then you do the K follow-up, Ein will hit, and then you just run up to them as fast as you can, and then do 1K Brave Edge. Even though Ein won't come out, that kick will lift you up, and then he will be rung out.
Interesting. That looks really goofy.
Yeah, it's really goofy, but actually it works.
Nice. All right. And any other examples?
From the top of my head, 6-6BA.
Gotcha. And I take it you would just follow that up with like an A plus B.
No, 66BA is just the ring out move itself.
Oh, gotcha. So you don't even need to do anything.
Yeah, exactly. So if you take in, for example, B hold, counter hit B hold, and you know they're gonna fall for the tech trap, and you're near the edge, yeah, just toss in 66BA. They'll fall for the tech trap, and it's a ring out too.
Gotcha. Oh, real quick, I think that we got cut off before you got to that. So just real quick, the tech trap it's counter hit B hold, correct? And then
Yes.
66BA, I believe.
Yeah, 66BA. It will catch all kind of rolls.
Gotcha. Okay, and then so back to the ring outs and stuff. So it sounds like we got the ring outs covered now. You mentioned Andy was talking about the wall. So at the wall, what are, let's just say that you get a normal wall splat, like off of A plus B.
Right.
Wall splats you onto the wall. What do you go for after that?
You can take two options for the wall combos. You can either keep going on with the wall combo, which is not really so effective because the damage scaling gets heavy big time. But it does a little bit of damage. So off of A plus B hits the wall. If you decide to follow it up, end the combo, you can do 3B. The opponent will hit the wall. After that, you can do 1B hold and release it. Ein will hit the opponent and stun him. After that, you can do 6A, which will stun the opponent once again. And then from there, you can do 6A plus B and end the combo. Or you can lift them up with 1K and then end it with A plus B. Now, if you want to get nasty and do the setups for those people that don't have matchup knowledge, you can actually do pretty nasty and awesome stuff. So let's take certain walls, for example. I'm not sure which walls, and this is very dependent as well. We actually have a chart for this, but some walls will actually allow you splat them really high. So let's start the combo with A plus G. A plus G is a grab. It's a headbutt. So you can follow that up with 4B Bravich. The opponent will wall splat. From that, you can do 3B, and the opponent will wall splat in a really high place. And from there, you can do 6B plus K and do a mix-up after that. Do a setup, either an unblockable setup, 1A setup, or a grab. It gets really nasty when you know what setups are.
Now, real quick off of the A grab, that was actually one that I had some questions about before we got cut off.
Yeah.
Now that it gives you plus 17. Is that am I remembering that right?
It's plus. Let me see. It's plus 18.
Plus 18.
Yes.
So now it's always. It seems like for the most part, unless you're doing something special. But like just open stage, for the most part you're going to go for a 4B, right? Or 4B Brave Edge after that.
Yeah. Like for example, if you are able to land A plus G grab and you're near the edge, you want to go for the ring out. So obviously you want to toss in the 4B Brave Edge. And if you still couldn't reach the ring and you have meter, you can pick them up from the floor with 1K Brave Edge and then bring them out with A plus B. Other than that, you can mix it up, even though it won't hit. Causing damage after A plus G, you can toss in 6/6 A plus B, 2/1 4B, or any other moves that will leave you at plus, or any moves that will cause guard damage.
Well, I guess that's the guard damage. If let's like say you don't have meter or they have too much, but their guard is about to break. That I would say that's a pretty good option.
Especially since you're at plus 18.
Yeah. So I did want to just make a little side note about something that you mentioned and Andy mentioned it as well, just out of juggles. Earlier we talked about how you do want to be a little bit prudent with how you use your meter. You want to make sure that you're using it and spending it wisely. You mentioned at the wall where the damage scaling can be kind of crappy, so it's not always worth it to do like the Brave Edge 1K or whatever. So just a little side note something that you guys had mentioned earlier for new players out there looking to pick them up. Pay attention to your meter. You don't always have to use it. Sometimes it's not the wisest decision in certain situations. But anyway, it sounded like you were about to say something. So go ahead.
Yeah. A little side note for the grabs. Where I don't want to just cover A plus G. This is something really funky and special. It's you can actually hold the B plus G grab. So when you do the regular B plus G, Ein will come from the skies and he will stab the opponent in the guts. But if you predict that the opponent will fall asleep, you can hold B plus G. The opponent will just remain on the floor, and then from the max hold, it gives you time to 1k them for extra damage. And yeah, I'm sorry. One last thing is if they actually stand up and block the Ein from B plus G hold, you're left at plus 18.
Nice. Well, and I know that just generally speaking, obviously the A plus G grab gives him free hits, but just the regular B plus G grab with no hold or anything like that leaves ZWEI in a really good Oki situation.
Yes.
For stuff like 214B. So yeah, definitely. Does he have any like manual grabs, or is it just the A and B grab?
Yeah, he doesn't have any command grabs.
Okay. All right.
The other interesting is that you can do a tech trap out of B plus G. Just regular B plus G, follow it up with 2A will catch front rolls, and that will leave you at plus 9, I believe. 2A. No, plus 8. Sorry, but yeah, it's a really interesting tech trap. Or you can just go for the guard damage, like you said, if the opponent will tech immediately to 1-4B. That's actually the whole point of ZWEI, breaking their guard.
Gotcha. Well, I think now that we've gone through most of this stuff, I think I'm starting to run out of the noob questions. We talked about the Ringouts in the wall. Just talked about the grabs. Talked about meter management.
Definitely.
Well, I guess. Is there anything that we haven't talked about yet that you think is important?
Yeah, just one little fun. It's not important. It's just really interesting stuff that most ZWEI players don't know it, even though I posted on the forums. ZWEI is the only character that has how can I explain? It's not a manual unblockable. It's an unblockable that you create, that it's 2 hits simultaneously. So let's grab 6B plus K. You can hold that move, and then we are going to grab 1A. So, for example, if you go into training mode or to a player in mid-match, if you do if you do 6B plus K, hold just a little, and then you time the A1A release with the 6B plus K release, both of them will hit at the same time, causing a weird unblockable. So the 1A will hit low, and the B plus K release will hit mid. So there's no way to block either of those two, or just guard for that matter.
Well, and I mentioned, I think at the beginning of the podcast, how ZWEI, at least to me, obviously he's a unique character because of Ein, but he almost feels like he plays sort of like a 2D character at times. And, the whole unblockable where, something hits mid and low at the same time, that's very much a 2D thing. Like you think of Marvel, for instance, there's a ton of those in that game. I'm glad you mentioned that, because it just kind of goes to his I guess uniqueness.
Definitely,
the best way to put it.
No, really, if you were just really to see all the stuff ZWEI can do, like all his juggles, and going back to the ring out game, I actually forgot to mention he has a really, really good back ring out. So if you do Wild Rising B, from there you can turn around quickly, juggle them with 1k Bravage until you run out of meter, and then use A plus B. Or if you're already close to the ring, to the edge of the ring, you can just do Wild Rising B, B plus K, and then ring him out with back turn A plus B.
Nice.
So it's a really good ring out game he has. I mean, not the best, but it's good enough.
Yeah. Well, and that's I noticed a lot of his stuff, and not all characters can say this, but his ring out stuff also does a healthy chunk of damage. So, like, if for some reason you misjudge it,
Yeah.
and you don't actually get them to the ring, you're still getting a good amount of damage out of the juggle. So.
Yeah, definitely. So
all right, well,
yeah, it's really good to toss in stuff even if you know it's not gonna do that much damage. You get the chance of ring out or guard break, whichever one.
all right, well, was there anything else that we missed that we should go over?
Not really. Just stay tuned. I think ZWEI is going to Evo, definitely. I'll be there, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna be the only ZWEI player there, but yeah.
Oh yeah, they're gonna. I saw that they were gonna try to do that. That side tournament, that official side tournament.
Yeah, definitely. So,
Evo, so
I'll definitely gonna be there.
Hopefully, yeah, and
get to see some
I haven't actually. Yeah, I haven't checked that thread in a while. I don't know if because it wasn't. I couldn't really tell from the way that that he had posted up if it was a for sure thing or if they needed X number of players to join before they could do that. But
from what I've heard, it's a for sure thing. What I'm really confused about is the registration. I think you just need a spectator pass since it's only a side tournament. So, but it's happening for sure from what I hear.
Okay, that makes more sense because I know I saw that Alex had put what is it, the RSVP system on it or whatever it was. So,
right.
Yeah, that's I mean that's definitely a good thing. And to be completely honest with you, not to get too off topic from Caliber, but when it comes to Evo, I understand that Evo, it's a huge tournament, tons of people come out, so they have to sort of restrict how much they can do. Because unlike a lot of tournaments, if you were to run 20 games at Evo, it'd be too much.
Yeah,
it'd just be too much to manage.
Definitely.
But I do like the initiative here that we're showing with Soul Calibur, because I think that could possibly be a trend in the future where Evo does their AAA games, so to speak, the main headliners, and then other people do other games that people will play and people will enjoy, and then they stream those as well. So hopefully this is a continuing trend in the future. But
yeah, definitely.
Really excited to see that. But so before we officially end the ZWEI discussion, I just want to double check with you, make sure there's nothing else you want to say.
Actually, there's actually one last thing I want to toss in there. I know every ZWEI player makes a big deal out of 668 plus B, and even though it might be a broken move, there's two things you gotta watch out, and that's Alpha Patroclus and Lacia. Their CEs can go through Ein, regardless if they block it or not. So just watch out for those two. And yeah, other than that, 668 plus B is broken.
Gotcha. With that being said, there's actually that leads me to a question to kind of, I guess, bring everything together and make one last little conclusionary topic for ZWEI. When we first started the discussion about this podcast, before we even started recording, Andy reached out to me to try to get everything organized, and he had suggested that we call the episode the Underdog Cast, which I actually I thought it was a little funny just because of the cartoon character, but then you suggested the Werewolf Cast, which is what we're going with. However, it did bring up an interesting topic in my mind where a lot of characters say, or not a lot of characters, sorry, a lot of players, if have a pretty low value on ZWEI, and that was part of your reason for not wanting to do name it the Underdog Cast, because you feel that he's better than a lot of people think he is.
He is definitely better than most people give him credit for.
So I want you to talk a little bit about that. Like, why do you think so many people think that he's so bad?
Because, like I said before, it's ZWEI is really dependent on the player's skill, and I'm not saying those players are stupid or they don't know their stuff. By all means, it's really hard to apply all of his stuff since he has a lot, and he does have a lot of stuff in his library. So it's really hard to know when to use it, how to use it. It all depends on the things you do. For example, Pyrrha, all you have to do is poke, step, be safe, punish. It comes down to pretty easy stuff that anybody can do. Mitsurugi is just mix-ups, mids and lows. But then you come to ZWEI and you have to keep all these things in mind. Zoning, the punishing, which is not really good. So what do you do with that? You don't have mix-up because his lows are really slow and punishable. So it's really, really hard. ZWEI is one of those characters where, it's almost as hard as APAT to use, except Alpha Patroclus is execution heavy. Whereas ZWEI is just, it's all in your mind. What really you can do with him, how well you can read your opponent. But he's definitely not a bad character. A lot of people would disagree. They would say that ZWEI sucks. He's low tier, probably the worst character. And, I respect that decision. It's fine, but, I disagree with that. And I think that I've proven quite a lot of people that I'm right. He's not, he's not that bad. He can do well. And not just me. Take for example Kerrigan. She's a German player. I think she got third place at this national tournament in France.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely that's something to look into. I was like, wow, really?
Gotcha. So you think that it's just people not understanding exactly how you need to play with him?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just people not understanding their own style as well as the other player's style, because you don't have to only adapt to your mistakes but also to the opponent's, and that's the hard part, keeping both in mind.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can definitely understand that. A little bit, because just Ein himself just creates so many other what's the best word for it?
Openings.
Yeah, like other factors that you have to take into consideration while you're playing the game. So, and you already have so much that you have to worry about. You have to worry about your guard meter. You have to worry about the actual, meter that you have to spend.
Yeah.
So you have to balance all these other things, and I can definitely see a lot of people not, having to add that one more thing you have to think about while you're playing can be a little bit difficult. Well, with that being said, I think we'll cap off the ZWEI discussion with that, and we'll just kind of go into the final segments here. Now, first, you mentioned Evo. I take it that's the next time that we'll be able to see you play, or are you planning on hitting up another tournament?
No, definitely Evo will be the one.
Okay, so I guess we'll see you there at Evo. Hopefully, see you on the stream and all that, and hopefully we can see some upsets, some ZWEI upsets going on. So the only other little section that I have, of course, is the sound off. I'm actually gonna have Andy send me a sound off, a written sound off on him, and I'm going to put it in the post just to try to make up for him not being here. But since you are here, I'm going to throw this over to you. I want to know something that makes you really angry, that would make you pick up a chair and throw it out of your window. It doesn't have to be caliber related, doesn't have to be even video game related, just something that's on your mind that's been really bugging you that you just want to get off your chest.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this will go for all ZWEI players. When Ein whiffs in your winning match. That's it. That's it. And it happened to me once. I was about to win a very important match. 1K Bravich, Ein whiffs, and I lose. So...
Yay for glitches.
Yay, and I think Siegfried has that heavy, huh? I think definitely Siegfried is the one whiffing character, but Namco.
Yeah, I remember Heaton was complaining about that a bunch too.
Yeah, Namco doesn't care about us anymore.
Well, we got that new one coming, I guess. So
Oh,
who knows?
the Army of Darkness? Yeah,
Yeah.
something to look into. Well, not really, because ZWEI probably won't be in there. I don't know if you probably know, but he supposedly dies in the story. He was stabbed in the back by someone.
Man, the Caliber story is so garbage. Whatever. Like if they really wanted to put him in there, they could put him in there.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
hell, Tekken has killed half of its cast and they're still in the game. So.
Right. So just I want to apologize to Andy. Sorry for the US being so crappy with the connection and the minutes. Definitely.
Yeah, and that's my fault too. Just so everyone knows, I did have minutes for it, but I did not think ahead as much as I should have, and it burned through those minutes way faster than I thought it was going to. So, but that's okay. We'll I'll figure something out to get him involved, and of course.
Definitely, and props to him for helping out with the SoulCast. Really glad having him help.
Yeah, absolutely, and of course, I'm sure he's on the boards, posting up all the time. So
yeah, definitely,
he obviously has a lot of knowledge. But so yes, thanks for him for coming on for a little bit and helping us out with this, and then of course, Zane, thank you for coming on to the podcast. No. And then the one final thing I do like to give my guests, the sort of final word. So if you have any shout outs or anything else that you want to throw out there, by all means.
Yeah, definitely. I want to give my shout outs to Zeph. Woohoo! Too bad he retired. He's actually the guy that got me into Soul Calibur to the level I am today. So he took his time to teach me all this frame data stuff, all this tactics. And thanks to him, I've gotten better. I've gotten to the level I am. And my hopes was to face him at the finals someday, but he retired, so I guess that won't happen. But, you never know. But yeah, shout outs to him, definitely. And to all my ZWEI players out there, we definitely got to improve and represent.
So he retired? I didn't hear that. What the hell is he retiring for?
I don't know. He said he's busy, but
I'd call that a cop out. But to be fair, I know that oh man, I always forget his handle. The Alpha Pat player. Oh, I can't remember. Yeah, whoa, sorry. I always space out his handle. But anyway, but I know that he has problems making out to stuff, but he's got the same thing. I think he's going through like medical school and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. The thing with Woes is that people from the community actually help him out to get the tournaments. I remember, I think it was NEC 13 or something, that he was writing an essay paper, if I remember, in chat. And then Jaxol or someone else signed him up for the tournament, and then Omega XCN picked him up from home just to take him to the tournament. And people from the community helped him write the paper out for his class.
Oh wow!
So
nice.
that was really hype.
God, when I was going through college, I should have just done that. Just been like, hey guys, write my stuff for me.
Well, he has the appreciation of all the community, so that's on.
Well, and that's nice to see. At least for him, because he doesn't ask for that sort of stuff, and everybody acknowledges that he's a great player. He's one of the best in the world. So it's always nice to get him out to tournaments and watch him play, because I've mentioned it several times. Like I don't know if we have a better technical like execution style player, at least not in the U.S. Like he's just crazy on point.
He's definitely
his just frames and stuff. So.
He's definitely one of the best players out there.
Yeah, definitely fun to watch. But okay, well, with that, if that's all you have, then we will call it a podcast. Again, thanks for Andy for helping us out and coming on for that short period.
Thanks, Andy.
And thanks, Zane, of course, for joining us as well.
Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. And thank you, of course, our beautiful and lovely listeners. As usual, don't know who's going to be next. It's just kind of who's available and when I have time and yada yada yada, that whole stuff. But we'll get there. We're as I've mentioned, we're slowly crossing these names off the character list. So we're getting towards the end here. But with that, yes, we thank everyone for listening, and we shall catch you next time. Have a good one.